Shanghai GDG is a very interesting developer community.
I'm glad somebody has asked this question.
This is where the magic happens.
This is primarily a question and answer show. So if any of you out there would like to ask questions.
Hi there. Welcome to AppScript Office Hours. I'm Jan. This is Ikai.
Hi.
And for those of you who haven't joined us before, Office Hours is a chance where we can tell you a little bit about what's been going on in AppScript and go over release notes, things like that, but we also have time to take questions from you, either live if you've joined us in the Hangout or on Google Moderator. So if you go to developers.google.com/live, you can find the entry for this Office Hours, and you can find a link to post questions on Google Moderator there.
And for those of you that have joined us before, you'll notice our fancy new studio. We're broadcasting live from the rainforest. But no, this is our first time using new equipment, so we apologize for a couple of technical difficulties that we might stumble over. But going forward, we're going to have this fancy new studio so that it's really going to make our stuff look really cool, I think, really high quality.
Make us look really cool.
Yeah, and I get to live out my childhood fantasy of being Anderson Cooper. So, yeah. So let's get started.
All right. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to switch over here to the Hangout, and I'm going to share my screen so that I can walk you all through some recent releases since our last Office Hours. So hopefully you can see these now. So I'm going to kind of work backwards from the most recent ones. Last night, August 22nd, so we fixed 2 issues that some of you may have experienced. The first one where it was happening with spreadsheets. This only happened for a period of about 24 hours, where if you're making a copy of a spreadsheet that had multiple projects contained within it, only one of those projects was getting copied with the spreadsheet. That's resolved now, so you should be working as expected. Then the second issue was a couple related things with the script gallery, where installs from the spreadsheet script gallery were not installing properly, either with an error message or with no error message, but the script wasn't showing up. So that is fully resolved now as well. So you shouldn't have any more trouble there. And then we had a regular release on August 20th with a few fixes and some improvements. So I'll just run through these quickly. So now UI app widgets have set style attribute methods so that you can set multiple attributes at once instead of calling set style attribute over and over and over, once for each attribute. So that should help you reduce the number of times you have to call that in your code. We also increased the maximum file upload size in web apps to 50 megabytes. So this now matches the limit for the docs list service. There is a new way of calling logger.log now that allows you to do string formatting. This is actually really useful, so definitely check out the docs and see if that's something that might help you as you're kind of logging and debugging your applications. There's a few other fixes. One was to the date picker widget, where sometimes it was having strange values if you chose a date before 1970. Another issue with all-day event series. They weren't being scheduled properly for certain time zones. There's one with HTML form elements. It's causing those not to be able to be sent in google.script.run callbacks. This is for HTML service. Ikai, I think you have some insight there.
Yeah, we've been looking at some reports. This is still not working for some people, so we'll be investigating that to figure out what's going on, if that's an issue with the service, or if that's just something else that's making it really confusing to figure out what the source to bug is. Okay. So that was one I was really looking forward to, because I know that going forward we're going to be supporting HTML service a lot more. We're going to be adding a lot more new features and improving the performance. So we want to get that one working, because if you can't submit forms, make things hard.
So we'll get the rest of that ironed out for any things that might still be happening there. An issue with embedded charts, returning the wrong data type, was fixed. And then there was also an issue with charts where we were ignoring the advanced parameters for data source URLs. And then finally, one that I'm super excited about is we have streamlined the process for publishing apps to the Chrome Web Store. So you no longer have to go through the process of doing the URL verification through Google Webmaster Tools. That's just not required for your apps anymore. It's all kind of taken care of behind the scenes. So that significantly streamlines the process. Now it's about 2 clicks instead of 2 clicks and some copies and pastes and opening back up again. So definitely check that out. If you had gone through the process before, it's much, much smoother now. Okay, so one other thing I wanted to mention before we jump into questions. There is, hopefully you can see this here, there is a blog post that went out today on the Google Analytics blog and also cross-posted on the Google Apps Developers blog and the Google Developers blog, announcing a really great script that takes advantage of the integration between AppScript and Google Analytics now. So this blog post talks a little bit about ways that you can pull analytics data into Google spreadsheets really easily, build custom dashboards. There's a great video explaining how the script that they've published in the script gallery works. And at the end, you'll notice they also have something fun. So the analytics team is offering Google Analytics developer t-shirts. The first 15 developers who build a solution that solves some sort of business problem using both the Google Analytics API and AppScript. So check that out if you're interested.
Okay. I have a second announcement, which is that if you don't follow the blog, we announced that we will be having an AppScript hackathon in Austin, Texas. This will be on Thursday, September 13th, 2012. So I will be there. I believe Eric's going to be going, and we'll have at least one other team member coming. It might be one or two on the way. So definitely sign up. If you want to find the blog post, it's at googleappsdeveloper.blogspot.com, and just scroll down. Jan posted about a few days ago. So just check it out. There's a sign-up form and all the information you need. So hopefully we'll see you there. And if not, we're looking at doing some other cities at some point in the future. So we'll get to your city soon, some point.
Okay, so let me pull up the questions here that we have in Moderator. All right. So it looks like we have two questions here. The first one, let me read through it and then we'll tackle each of these. So is it possible to add a control to a geomap in order to be able to choose what year and month to view the data? I've tried and failed multiple times. Are you familiar with what is being referred to here?
Let me take a look at this question real quick. Is it able to add, well, Rusty, are you on the chat right now? Are you on the Hangout right now? Because I'd love to hear more about what you're asking. It's not quite clear to me.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's being referred to as geomap here, if this is something related to the charts API or if this is something related to the map service.
Oh, could this be related to Fusion tables?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think what we're going to need in this case, let me just see in the Hangout. No, we don't have anybody typing furiously in the chat for the Hangout. So I think we'll need a little more details here. I'll post a response afterwards, trying to get some more details about this question, and then we can take a look into it. So the next one here, are Google AppScript dashboard quotas by domain, user, or script? I received a too much traffic error while posting 3 large posts using URL fetch app, 8 minutes. I guess that's 8 megs, 4 megs. That appear to be below all published quotas. Why does this occur? So in most cases, the quotas are going to be, so it kind of depends on the quota. Some quotas are per user. Some quotas are per user per script. So this URL fetch one is most likely going to be, and then some quotas are actually time-based as well.
Right.
So some of them will be short-term quotas, so you can do X amount of whatever the task is or X amount of data transfer in Y amount of time. So if this is a too much traffic error, I'm guessing that it's probably the amount of bandwidth that you're using in a small amount of time that you're hitting. So again, this would be a good one for us to get a little more detail about specifically what you're doing. It's also the case that the dashboard is not exhaustive, so it doesn't list every single quota that exists. We're trying to expand what's listed there. It lists most of them, but not all of them. So if there's a quota that's people are commonly running into, we may need to add that to the dashboard as well. But I do believe that URL fetch does have some sort of limitations around the amount of data that you can transfer or request in a given short period of time. So if it's possible for you to kind of space that out a little bit, that may help.
I would suggest, at least for the purposes of testing to figure out what exactly it is, put a sleep between these 3 things. Just to, I'm not saying do this for your production application, just so we can figure out where you're hitting the bandwidth limit. I mean, if you put like, what, a 30-second, 60-second sleep, I think that should be sufficient to figure out if it's because you're posting too quickly, or if you're just going over some other limit, right? Like there might be something else going on. So we want to narrow down what could be tripping this limit. Now, yeah. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say the good news is that going forward, we are working on raising a lot of the different quotas, so it'll be a lot harder to trigger them. But in the meantime, we'll want to figure out what's causing this, and we want to understand what you're doing with AppScript, so that if it makes sense to raise this quota, and it sounds like it does, that we can do so.
So another thing I would like to know in this case is, for these requests that you're making, if you're a Google Apps customer, are they within your domain? So for example, are you transferring things within, like files within your own domain or something like that? Because that may be a different use case than if you, for example, you were making requests out to some third-party API or from some third-party site where you have files stored or something like that, because there may be different things that we can do if this bandwidth is constrained within kind of your own domain, if that makes sense. So it'd be good to know just a little bit more. Oh, yes.
Yes, I was using the AppScript to read those 3 files out of Gmail. They were attachments on an email.
Okay.
And I was trying to post them to our third-party collaboration system through HTTP posts, and I could successfully do it with smaller files. It just, when I got to the 3 bigger ones in that use case, it basically failed.
Okay. So in that case, it may be helpful for us to take a look at this ourselves. We'll contact you afterwards to get a little more detail, so we can try to reproduce this and see specifically which limit you're hitting, and see if we can give you some possible solutions that would work for what you're trying to do.
Okay, good. Thank you.
All right. And looks like we had a third one come in here while we were talking. So I'm using forms as a part of my app, and I was wondering if there's a way to get the user ID or email outside my domain. I want to get this information so I can prevent users from submitting the form multiple times. So if you are using Google Spreadsheet forms, the built-in forms that are part of Google Spreadsheets, no, I don't think that's possible unless you put a field specifically asking the user for their email address. The only way that you can automatically get that with Google Spreadsheet Forms is if it's within your domain and you've enabled that option. If you are using HTML service or UI app or something like that, and you have published the web app to run with the permissions of the user who's accessing the app rather than running as you, the developer, then you can actually call session.get activeuser.getEmail and get their email address that way. So that may be another option depending on how you're doing this. But again, if you're using a Google Spreadsheet form, only if you're doing that within your domain.
And this is a little bit of trivia. Jan can actually write code using speech to text, as you just demonstrated.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Session.use. that was pretty good.
Okay. Do we have any live questions?
With a couple of questions that came up. Very nice set, by the way. It looks nice.
Thank you.
The logger, you mentioned with the new logger, did that post?
Oh, you're talking about the bug where when you do a post, it doesn't log things. I don't think we resolved this yet. Eric, do you know if we've resolved? I don't believe that we've actually fixed this bug.
I think
that it's still
we still have some work that we're doing to get logging working in web apps. So that would include things like do post. Yeah, so we're still working on that one.
Okay, cool. Because it was working before something got fixed.
It was working, I think, about a week and a half ago.
Yeah,
about that.
There's some changes that we need to make to get that working again. There's some other cases where logger is not currently working in all cases, aside from just do post. So we are actively working on that. I think it's, if I'm remembering correctly, I think it's not going to be too much longer before we'll have that fixed out for you. So we'll definitely update in the tracker once it's actually confirmed.
Actually, that reminded me of something. One of the things that I would do is I built my own little logger just through email because it was nice and one-liner. One of the things that I've noticed recently, and I haven't distilled it down to what the exact problem is, it seems if you have Gmail app send mail, it's asking for authorization a lot.
Yes.
I see you nodding. So does that mean somebody's already put that issue out there, or you're aware of it?
So that's actually something that's very specific to Gmail app, and it's intentional because Gmail app is one of these services that's very, I guess, sensitive could be the word. I don't mean that in any like capital S sensitive kind of way, but it's
attractive to the people to abuse.
No. I just mean that it's accessing your inbox. You know, it's one of the ones where we want to be extra careful and make sure that the user, the person running the script, knows what the script is doing. Anytime you make a change to a script that uses Gmail app, it's going to prompt you for authorization after any change that you make. So if you're just using this for logging, try mailapp.sendemail instead. Especially if you're just using it to send email, not to like read things from your inbox or apply labels. Mail app may be the way to go for you because mail app works a little differently. It's just for sending mail instead of for accessing your inbox and messages and things like that. So that will probably save you a lot of frustration.
Another thing you can do is you might be able to do something with either Spreadsheets API or ScriptDB. Now, the trade-off is that it's no longer a one-liner, but the good news is that if you write this function once, you could just go ahead and use it in any other script you write in the future.
Well, it's also the advantage of the email too is it's instantaneous.
Yes,
it's actually
absolutely.
It was a little bit better than Logger because you have to run it and then open Logger. This was you could have another window running with your email. It just pops up, and if you put the information you're looking for in the subject line, it's really fast. So and I also throw the time in there so it doesn't end up in a thread. So it's a different subject line, and they just pop up. It's really efficient that way. But you know what? I hadn't even really mentally distinguished between Gmail app and Mail app, so that's kind of good. So I probably should use Mail app more often anyway for other things as well, right?
Yeah,
for any time I'm sending email?
If you're just sending email, then it's probably the simpler way to go. But if you want to do anything around, accessing inbox threads or messages or adding labels, then you've got to go with the Gmail service.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize there was a difference.
Yes.
And the only last question is you mentioned that you're coming to many different cities for hackathons. Any in Canada, Toronto or Montreal or Ottawa?
We don't have any planned yet. We actually don't have the rest of our cities planned for the rest of the year at all.
Right, we're still working on it. Although I will tell you that some of the Canadians here have been trying to drag me to Montreal for some time now. So
I hear it's awesome. So
I hear, not in the winter, so not anytime in the next few months. But we're thinking about it. And since we're just in New York City, we should just be a bus ride away.
So
yeah, that's true. I'm down there fairly often, so that might be kind of fun to.
I mean, it'd be a bus ride for us to you, right? Although it is a lot easier for us to run events in New York City, so we might just do that to do that.
Yeah, we'll just have to see how things go. But we'll be sure to post them on the Google Apps developer blog and also on the developers.google.com/events, I believe it is. Anything that we're hosting, we'll end up posting there as well. So that's a good place to go. That's for all of developer relations.
Right.
You can find our events there.
Yeah, I've got all the notices for the others, so
great.
It's all pretty cool.
Okay. One other thing that I wanted to mention when you were talking about logging and debugging. So if you're running your scripts from the editor and you want just a quick way to throw up some debug information onto the screen, you can also just use throw. And I use this sometimes instead of logger.log when I just want to do something quickly. If you throw something and then give it the string of whatever you want to display, you'll get this red bar at the top. So basically you'll be throwing an exception, but then if you click the details link from there, it's very dirty way of doing things. You can click the details link from there, and then whatever you have thrown will show there. And it can actually, I think that it'll buffer more text than Logger currently will. So sometimes if I've got a big chunk of text that I want to log, I will sometimes use throw.
But it also stops execution.
Oh yeah,
right?
it's
if you want that.
If you want that, then it gets the job done.
Yeah.
Well, generally when I'm putting it in, I've got a problem. I need to find something. So the fact that it stops there, it was stopping around there anyway. So that's kind of cool. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Have you used a debugger at all?
I have, but the last little while I've been doing a lot of UI app stuff. So
I see.
Right.
Unfortunately, it doesn't really, do what I need, right? Because
hopefully soon we'll have the logger working again for you in web apps, and that'll get you back on your way.
Right.
Yeah, debugger. If there's some possible way that I can't envision it. That's why I've never actually asked for it as a feature. If there's some possible way that you could kind of, as a UI app was running, you could get the variables. Just the values and the variables, that would be kind of neat. Or like a real-time logger, if you could open a window. Actually, maybe I should do that as a feature, an enhancement.
That would be a good feature request, not just for UI service, but also for HTML service and anything that has we call non-headless apps.
Yeah. I guess the question would be then, like, which instance of it are you attaching to?
Right.
So.
Well, just Logger.
I'm still thinking from like Java world, right? Oh no, we're talking about when you attach a debugger to a UI app.
Oh, I see,
right?
debugger. Oh,
because
okay.
the difference is that you have multiple. You could have multiple people attaching to multiple GUIs, and which one would you attach to, right? So,
but
maybe
a
it's more work
real-time
than I thought.
Logger might help too. Because you could essentially do that if Logger, if you could open a Logger window, rather than waiting to the end, wherever Logger is being written, that you have a real-time Logger window. Because what I often will do is I'll define my own variable. So if I've got I, I'll have I equals, and then put the value in my Logger, so I know what value is being displayed. If you had a real-time Logger, whenever Logger wrote to it that it would display in that window. You wouldn't necessarily get the debugger in the sense that you stop the code, but you would real time be able to see what was happening.
Yeah, definitely put it in the issue tracker, and we can have the engineering team take a look and see if it's something that'd be feasible for them to do sometime in the future. The answer might be that it's not, but we will be happy to look into it for you.
Or my ideal world answer is that it is, but as part of a greater framework of log enhancements. Like right now, as you know, the logger is only good for the one execution. I mean, you might want a logger that lasts a few days or whatever, right? So,
yeah. Cool.
Okay, so we have a couple more minutes here. Any other live questions? And we can jump back over and I'll check and see if we've got anything more. Oh, look at that. We have a couple other questions.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to have to go back to screen sharing here.
They're popular hours today. I mean, people jumping on.
So let's see how much we can get through. Let me pull this screen back up in the next 2 minutes. All right, so ScriptDB. Okay, so this is a question about ScriptDB being quota. Does it count against the script author's drive quota? So it says ScriptDB counts against script author's drive quota, but where can the quota be queried and viewed? So actually, I think that it's not the drive quota that it's counting against, if I remember correctly.
I think there's just the ScriptDB quota.
Specific ScriptDB quota, and we don't currently have a way for you to query directly how much you've used. I think there is a feature request in for that. I'm pretty sure. If there's not, definitely raise one. So that's something that we do acknowledge a need for. We have also heard requests to have ScriptDB quota be tied to drive quota, but it currently is not today. So I've noticed that logger.log doesn't work inside callback functions. Yes, that is the bug we were referencing, where logger is not currently working in web apps, and in a couple other cases. We're working on it, and it hopefully won't be too much longer before we have that fixed up and rolled out.
That is not intentional behavior.
Right, so the team is working hard on that. And then I have 2 questions about components. One, is there a way to get the selected item on a list box from another component's click event? And 2, set tag isn't working inside callback functions when I set it and try to get back null at the same time. So that last question would be one that would be really great for us to get on Stack Overflow, along with a snippet of code of the script that you're running that's seeing this behavior, because that will help us take a look and give you some suggestions better than we can kind of do in 30 seconds right here. But that's definitely a UI app question that we can take a look at. If you post it on Stack Overflow, we or another AppScript person will take a look.
Right. And I want to say hi to Marcelo, who is one of our GDG organizers in Bolivia.
Awesome.
So, how you doing? Welcome to the Hangout. And he's not on the live video, so he can't say hi back.
But hi from us to you. Okay, well, I think we're out of time, so thanks for joining us, and we'll be back next week. I also want to mention that next Friday we have a special additional session where we're doing, instead of office hours on Friday, we'll be doing kind of a chat interview style format with a external AppScript developer, Andrew Stillman, who has actually written a lot of the popular scripts in the script gallery. So it's on the calendar for Google Developers Live. Be sure to join us if you're interested. All right.
All right, and that's a wrap. We'll see you here next time.